Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Araya, and I'm the Communications and Events Manager for the Kent Chamber of Commerce. And today we're going to be going over a Vision of Hope with Michelle Fritz. She's the Executive Director at Vine Maple Place. This presentation will also be recorded for anyone who missed it or want to be able to see it. We will have it available at our monthly newsletters our weekly newsletters on Monday. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will have, at the end of this, we will have a Q&A session. And I'll go ahead and open it up for Michelle.
Thank you so much, Araya. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today, Zooming in with us here at Vine Maple Place. Real quick, I'm Michelle Fritz, as Araya said, and we're excited to tell you about Vine Maple Place and give you a little insider view into some thoughts, ideas, visions, and hopes for the future for putting an actual services facility of some sort into Kent. So as you're listening today, please be thinking of any questions that you might have about Kent, about Vine Maple Place, and how that all connects, because we'd love to answer those questions at the end. Julia Patterson is here, and she's our Director of Engagement at Vine Maple Place. And we also have Laura Murray here, who is our Volunteer Coordinator, and they're going to guide you through a series of stories, real life stories of families, moms and kids that have been at Vine Maple Place. And I'm going to spend a few minutes in the middle of all that going over some of the stewardship and overviewing the mission, the vision, and some of the tactics that we employ here at Vine Maple Place. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm just going to hand it over to you, Julia.
Great, thanks so much. Again, as Michelle said, my name is Julia Patterson. I'm the Engagement Director here at Vine Maple Place. And if we were meeting in person, we would be providing you with a one-pager that we call our impact report. And Michelle's going to be going over some of this information with you. On the back side, there is information about what our families need in terms of everything from volunteering needs to in-kind needs. And if you'd like this impact report, or if you have questions or comments that you want to share with us, we invite you to provide your contact information, email, name, phone number in the chat box, and Michelle, Laura, or I will reach out to you, provide you with that one sheet, and also answer any questions that you may have at the end of this. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Laura to introduce herself, and we'll continue on.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. So a little bit about me. I'm the volunteer coordinator, like they said. And when I first came to Vine Maple Place about 5.5, almost 6 years now, I had learned about Vine Maple Place and how they served families in the community. And I had just graduated college and had learned from college that a lot of folks don't know how to go to college. And that's one of the reasons why people struggle with work and employment. And my parents, I grew up in a dual parent household, and they had both graduated from college. And so when I grew up, I always knew that was what I would do. I would graduate high school and go off to college. And so once I learned how that knowledge on how to go to college, how it was quite a privilege, I thought, I'm going to go to Vine Maple Place and help teach people how to go to college. And I started volunteering, and I learned so much more about what single parents face, and fell in love with Vine Maple Place's philosophy of a hand up and not a handout. I just loved all the different opportunities we have to really connect with families and help them with what they need. And so as soon as a position opened up, I started on staff as a financial literacy specialist. And over the last 5 years, I've held a number of different positions within the program side of the organization and learned about all these different aspects on how we help clients. And I'm excited to continue in the role here as the volunteer coordinator, because I love connecting to people in the community and helping them find fulfilling ways to impact the lives of moms and kids in our program. So
great. Thanks, Laura. And my passion about the mission of stopping family homelessness really has to do with some of my own background. We were not homeless. I had both of my parents in the home, but my childhood was marked by a lot of violence, a lot of chaos, and a lot of upheaval. And so when I think about children that are living in that situation perpetually and for whom homelessness and instability is a daily reality for them, that reaches me. I believe that every child deserves a future and a bright hope for tomorrow. And so that's really why I am here. And when I came to know about Vine Maple Place, I was an insurance agent actually at the time. And I thought, I have got to do something. I've got to get involved. And so what I did was I began inviting others. I began introducing my contacts, my professional networks, my church family, and assorted others, and began having them come to this presentation that you guys are listening to today, so that they could hear about ways that they could get involved. And that is still, in fact, something that is critical, is for the community to understand what it is that Vine Maple Place does, so that people can determine if that's something that they want to be involved in. So that's a little bit about my history. And now I'm going to hand it back to Michelle to tell you a little bit more about herself and to talk about the mission of Vine Maple Place and the stewardship of that mission.
Thanks, Julia. Well, I guess we all have a story about how we get involved in things, don't we? And my first engagement with Vine Maple Place was as a volunteer. My husband and I had heard about Vine Maple Place for several years. It was back in 2007. And so we put on a little fundraiser and did some things and got involved. And I wanted to know more about what was happening. And so I came on staff very part-time. And what really connected me to a heartfelt mission that I today live out every day, and the work that I get to do here is a phone call that came in. So I was answering phones at the front desk. I worked very part-time here at Vine Maple Place. We were helping 14 families at that time in our shelter units here on site, and then a couple of miles away, but we had 14 families. So a phone call comes in on a Friday evening at 5 o'clock. It's a November cold, dark evening, and we're buttoning up everything. And a mom who was in a car with her 7-year-old boy calls in, and she got the hotline, but she got the message to leave a message. And so she started hitting the buttons, and she got me at the front desk. And I answered the phone, and I was not working in program. I had very little interaction with the families at that time. And she got a voice. She got somebody on the other end of the phone. So she launched into her story, which absolutely grabbed me up. She was running from a very dangerous situation. Her 7-year-old boy was in the car with her. She grabbed him up with whatever she could out of the home that she was in. And he wasn't feeling very well. As she was talking and telling me her story, she had no friends, no family to go to. Could I help her? What could I do? And I could hear her kind of trying to keep her little guy calm and quiet while she was on the phone with me. And it broke my heart. I could hear the panic in her voice. And I was not prepared to offer her any solutions other than to call 211, which is the crisis line. And I knew that she was going to be spending the night in that car with that little guy. And how could that be? How could, in our communities, could we have families under the radar, so to speak, moms trying to keep her son safe, in that situation? And I don't know her name. I don't know her little guy's name, and never found out what happened to them. But I can tell you, I have heard this story so many times from hundreds of parents in different ways, different situations, but families needing safety, needing help to get safe. And as Laura said, a hand up out of a desperate situation. So at Vine Maple Place, we are focused on working with single parent families. We're coming from difficult backgrounds and experiences who are working to find some place that they can begin to get to work themselves. And we work with those families to help them achieve their goals. And their goals usually are around getting safe and stable. That's what these families have taught us over years and years of work with them. We launched a program called the Stable Families Program in 2012. At that time, as I said, we were serving 14 families, and Julie's going to pop up that one pager for you here. But I want you to see the amazing work that the community has been doing. I consider myself a facilitator here. I serve as the executive director. I was in program for 6 years, worked real closely with the pilot on the Stable Families program. If you look at that graph there, it's amazing to see what the communities of Maple Valley, Covington, Kent, Auburn, and Renton are doing to help their families that are coming from very difficult facing homelessness situations. So you can see 2012, we served about 68 moms and kids. Last year, over 1,400 moms and kids received the services that they needed to get out of homelessness. And it's just remarkable when we look at that. I want you to know today that 50% of the families that we are serving are actually Kent residents. Families that are either connected to Kent, homeless somewhere, we're helping them to get back into their Kent community, or physically in their Kent communities. We help families that are homeless or almost homeless. So we have a prevention program that provides rent assistance to help families before they actually become homeless. So looking at the numbers here, starting in that top left-hand corner, 471 families served in that 2019 period. This next year, we're going to serve over 700 families. That's miraculous what the community is doing and coming forward. The stewardship of the program and what's happening here, very, very important. We have numbers. I want you to know we know behind every one of these numbers is a mom and a child, and the care and the compassion that the community is providing to these families is helping these families stay housed. 1 year after a family leaves the program, 91% of those families are still housed. And that means the trajectory of their situation has changed. We're receiving lots of calls. Again, about 45 to 50% of those phone calls are coming from Kent right now. You can see 2,500 calls received in 2019. We're on par for that, plus more calls this year. For every one family we serve, we turn away 4 families. So out of the 5 calls that we get, we can serve 1 family. I want you to know, about 4 years ago, that was 1 out of 15. So with this tremendous growth, we've seen those numbers level out a little bit. We are also able to bring in, because of the care, compassion, donations, volunteers at Vine Maple Place, and that engine behind it, 40 new families each month. That says 37, but now we're bringing in 40 families each month. And the approach that we're taking here that you're going to hear from Julia and Laura is around providing safety emotionally and physically for families. So that's part of the charitable part of the program. And then these families, they're amazing. They get to work very, very hard, and they get to work right away to gain their goals around stability. And that's employment and budgeting. Many of the families engage in our counseling program here, and we have a great big children's program that you're going to hear a little bit about as well. 2/3 of who we're serving at Vine Maple Place are children. So when we talk about the mission here, it's to break the generational cycle of homelessness, working with single parents and their kids. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the crisis response, and Julie, you can go ahead and put that down now. But the crisis response, so obviously we're in the middle of the pandemic, and we've been moving forward over the last 6 to 8 years with the Stable Families program with a lot of growth. Families being successful. We're very, very proud of what they're able to do with the resources that are provided here. When COVID hit, it was a panic for the families. 2/3 of the families lost their jobs over about 3 weeks. By April 10th, we had a lot of families out of work because of the closures of restaurants and all the medical industry, the schools closed down. And a lot of our families are really the workforce behind those industries, as well as healthcare and such. So panic, mental health became a big issue. And so we got to work very, very quickly, our mental health group on site, working with other resources, social impact at the YMCA, Sound Mental Health, Valley Cities, to serve 87 families that were really struggling. And so that was our watch list at that time. Food scarcity became a huge issue for our families. How do you go to a grocery store and take your 2 kids in there when COVID first hit? Now the kids are home, and so how do we get the meals that were being provided through schools? We saw, you know, food stamps were run out of the first couple of weeks into the month. So we started a hot meals program. Lastly, and most importantly, rent assistance. So families who had just been housed, families who've been housed for a couple of months and had work now, we provide rent assistance to all of the families once they're housed and help them with all of these other resources. And what we were seeing is families were in a panic. How am I going to be homeless again? How am I going to pay my rent? Even though there's a moratorium on evictions, I can't pay my rent this next month because I am out of work. And so how, you know, all of these different complications. So our rent assistance increased by about 48%. The number of families we serve today increased by 48%. So this, at this time, we're serving 225 families a month. Pre-COVID, it was about 150. So you can see there was a big stressor. We all know this. Everybody has been through a lot, every one of us. There's not anybody who hasn't been impacted by this. It's been devastating for the families. It's never been a more humbling time. And I can tell you the amazing community of Kent has provided incredible support through the amazing food programs that you guys have going, through donations, through volunteering and such, and helping these families at Vine Maple Place, as well as the other organizations that I know a lot of you are probably involved with in Kent. I'm on a lot of the coalition calls at Kent, and it's amazing to see what your community is doing and accomplishing for families. So lastly, I want you to know, yes, we have an emergency response. That's very important, but the core to what happens at Vine Maple Place, the infrastructure of that changed. We have a lot of Zoom classes now, as well as we have families on sites. We have moms in employment classes and budgeting classes and coming in for housing stability and working on landlord relations. And housing stability. And then we have the kids program. We have about 80 kids a day coming, which is about 50% capacity, but we can safely have them on site throughout the day. We have a preschool in the morning. We have the elementary schoolers more up the middle, and then we have the teens here in the afternoon into the evening. So a lot happening, but the core of what we do, that safety and stability, is still part of what we're providing along with the emergency resources. So I'm excited for you to hear from Julia and Laura. Again, at the end, if you have any questions, we'll stay on and would love to answer questions or if you have any thoughts. But oh, I did forget one very important thing, and that is that we have a vision and a board directed. We are looking to put something into Kent. It could be a facility. It could be a pop-up. We don't know exactly what it is, but we're very excited to get into the community and serve the community more directly there from a logistics standpoint. We serve out of what we call the Family Hope Center here, which we opened 2 years ago. This year it's going to be maximized with serving those 700 families from the surrounding communities, Kent and surrounding communities. And so when we go to Kent, which we hope will be soon, when I say soon, that could be as far out as a year or as soon as 6 months. We're just putting that together. So I invite any thoughts, any ideas you might have, either after Laura and Julia do their presentation, and or feel free to connect with me at any given time. So thank you so much for your time and attention. And
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. So we're going to get in now and talk about what it looks like for a family to become safe, stable, and work towards self-sufficiency. And I want you to take a moment and think, when you think of a homeless person, pause for a moment and examine who it is you're envisioning. If you're anything like I was, you are picturing a man in all likelihood. Perhaps he's by the side of the road holding a sign, or he's pushing a cart down the road. Well, I was devastated to learn that the average age of a homeless person is 8 years old. Now, I don't know what you were doing when you were 8, but when I was 8, I wasn't concerned with where I was going to sleep at night. I wasn't concerned with when I was going to have my next meal. A child should never be having to have those kinds of worries. So the first stop on the tour of our mission is offering safety. And if you were here at the Family Hope Center, what you would see are our emergency shelter apartments here, where the families that are in the darkest, most devastating situations come to first. They're coming out of cars, they're coming out of storage units, and they are able to be here safe while they're working with our staff to obtain permanent housing. And so at this time, I'm going to go ahead and share a very brief video with you from 3 moms who wanted to share their stories.
My children never felt safe when we were homeless. And I think that they would play and try to be normal children, but I felt worthless as a mom. We were sometimes in the car, sometimes in hotels. I was just always in fear, not sure where I was going to be, not sure what I should do.
And Cheyenne starts screaming, I want to go home. I'm like, Cheyenne, we don't have a home right now. So then we end up, that's really sad.
3 months after I got hired on at my current job, they told me that I made too much, so they were cutting my food stamps. So it left me the choice to pay my rent or feed my kids. October 31st, they evicted us. So we were living in my car for a few days. I would take literally my whole paycheck to pay for what I could in a hotel room. Usually only ended up to be a few days, and then we would be back in the car.
I think maybe the 27th, that's when the power went out. So I'm like, man, I'm never gonna catch up. I'm never gonna get anything done. Cheyenne would stand on her cot and scream at the top of her lungs, I wanna go home, I wanna get in bed. They're not used to what we're going through.
Just on the hope that something might go good, I came out here and I had an interview at Vine Maple Place. And she said, well, I do have a place for you. And I started crying and I said, are you serious? I can't believe this. And she said, yes, I have a place for you and we can go see it right now if you want to.
Was able to move my kids out of the car into a 2-bedroom apartment for once. Like, I felt the weight leave my shoulders the minute I walked through the door.
She runs in there, she's like, my bed, my toys, my curtains, everything.
The kids came into the program. Once they decided that these were good people, they started to see that the community that we were in wasn't dangerous. And I just think that's great, the sense of community that they were able to feel. The people here are so accepting and genuine.
Caleb, I'm so proud of him. He's, for the first time in his life, talking about going to college.
Now that we're all stable in our apartment, my kids, I'm very hopeful for them.
Without Vine Maple Place, it wouldn't have been possible. We would have still been out there.
Everything you guys do helps everyone.
Maybe we're not exactly all the way healed, but knowing that we have hope for the future is the most important thing to the healing process.
It is incredibly humbling to be part of the transformation of a family from utter hopelessness and fear and desperation to a future that has hope in it. We're getting over 200 phone calls every month, and it breaks our hearts to have to turn away any families, let alone having to turn away 4 out of 5. And so we're laser focused on closing that gap so that more families can receive rent assistance and the other care and services that are provided here. And in order to do that, of course, we need the financial resources to be able to provide those services. And so really that going from safety to stability is the very next step for these families. And it might be easy to think that once a family has a roof over their heads, their problems are sort of resolved. But we can tell you that these families have been through so much. They have got a long road ahead of them to really become stable. And that's why if you were here at Vine Maple Place, you would see not only our adult training center, but you would see our children's center downstairs. It's 3,400 square feet, brightly lit, beautiful graphics on the walls. There's a magical tree house in back. But the most exciting thing that happens in that children's center is the work being done by staff and volunteers with those children through mentoring and tutoring and all the amazing things that happen there. So I'm going to actually pitch it over to Laura to talk to you a little bit about Shane and his mom.
Yeah. So Shane was 7 years old when him and his mom, Gloria, first came to Vine Maple Place. They were fully homeless, and even before they became homeless, their lives were chaotic and violent. And so Shane, when he was here, he was stone-faced, showing no emotion, drawn into himself, and occasionally he would have angry outbursts, but that was all communication that we had from him. And imagine a 7-year-old whose life has been so traumatic that he's too fearful to play or to smile. And his mom, Gloria, she was completely overwhelmed. She couldn't think about how she could heal from the abuse, how to get a job, how to help him. And so their first step when they first got here was to get safe housing away from the abuser. And then trained staff, volunteers, counselors spent a lot of one-on-one time working with Shane down in the children's area. And one day, Professor Steve, who you can see in this picture here, he came in and he made slime with the kids. And for the first time, we saw Shane get excited. He smiled and he was sharing what he was doing with the other kids. And it was just so great to see him come out of himself. And meanwhile, Gloria was upstairs. She was working with the team to establish her budget and look for a job. And she's received counseling. And now we even have a virtual domestic violence workshop to support women like her learn how to have healthy relationships.
Right, because really, more than 40% of the families that are coming to Vine Maple Place are coming out of domestic violence. Michelle mentioned that at one time we had 87 families on a mental health watch list. Last I heard it was in the high 70s right now. And so another goal of ours is to hire another mental health counselor so that we can make sure that as we grow, all of the families who need mental health assistance are receiving that help. So once a family is safe and they're stable, then they can begin looking toward self-sufficiency in the Vine Maple Place program. And if you were in the adult training center upstairs, you would see 3 large classrooms with computer stations where we have clients that are working right now on site, as well as with the various volunteer teachers remotely to work on life skills, parenting, employability, financial literacy, and all sorts of things to help them move towards self-sufficiency. And so during this COVID time, employment has been so incredibly challenging. One might think that, with all of these people losing jobs, that there may not be people getting jobs, but we've had some amazing success stories from the moms and the dads in our program. Laura, would you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about Maria?
Yeah, so when Maria and her young daughter Stephanie first came to Vine Maple Place, it was about a week before the coronavirus hit here in Washington State. They had fled their abuser, but were in their own apartment. And as the COVID crisis ramped up, Maria's hours were cut significantly, and her attempts to find other jobs were just not successful. And she was terrified that she wouldn't be able to pay her bills, where to get food, and all of that. And so here at Vine Maple Place, we were able to help provide Stephanie and Maria with food and basic essentials. And so within a few weeks, Maria was able to start thinking about employment and looking for a job. And so she partnered with the employment specialist here, and they were able to work on her resume remotely. And then a volunteer coach connected with her via Zoom to do some mock interviewing. And within days of updating her resume, she had 3 job interviews lined up for the very next week. And from those interviews, she was offered a full-time position, making $2 an hour more than she had been making before in a stable full-time job.
Yeah, that really is amazing. You may be aware, being business people, that it is incredibly, cost of living is so high here. You might be interested to know that in King County, a single mom needs to make at least $24 an hour to be able to make ends meet. At least $24 an hour. And $24 an hour is like shooting for the moon for most of these families. They cannot even imagine it. And so additional education, certification, learning a trade, these things are needed for these families to be able to work toward a livable wage job. And so another goal of ours is to expand the number of families that are receiving an additional housing stipend that enables them to go to school while they're working and going to school and improving their employability. And so that's something that is a real priority for us, is to be able to make sure that more and more of these families can receive that education. Laura?
Yeah, so we're closing up now, and I just want to thank everybody so much for coming online here or seeing this recording in the future. We love to call folks and follow up and get your feedback. And so if you enter your phone and email into the chat, Julie and I, one of us will reach out and get in touch with you. So thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. And I'll just make a couple of other pitches here. If you're on Facebook, please like the Vine Maple Place Facebook page, because that's one way that we make real-time needs known for these families. And you can really help change some lives by sharing out some of those posts. And again, also, if you would like to share this information with others, we provide this presentation for private groups. So we would love the opportunity to talk with you and schedule this presentation for your coworkers, civic organizations, or whatever. So thank you so much. We're done now. We'd love to stay on the line with anyone that wants to come on and just chat a little bit. I see a few questions. I see some emails coming up. Very good. Great. So our contact information, I'll go ahead and type that into the chat here. So I'm going to give our website.
Thank you, Julia.
Yeah.
Also, if for some reason you guys didn't get the information, you can always email the chamber, and or we can CC an email to Vine Maple Place at any time. If for some reason, you needed an introduction, I'm happy to be here as well to help with that. Thank you, Katrina.
Yeah, did you mention that we have a new website?
No, I didn't. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so we just launched a new website at the end of August. It was long overdue. I think it was 10 years old or something. So we're really happy that it's out there. So please go ahead and take a look at vinemapleplace.org too. It has a lot of information, some of those great videos. So I hope you enjoyed that video. We love it. Yeah, and I can tell you that several of those families that we're talking are Kent families. We have a new video that's just out too. And we're always amazed at how our families want to step up and tell their stories, because they're beautiful and they're amazing and they're courageous. And so really, really love that they want to share with the communities.
Any other, feel free to unmute yourselves if you have any, since the presentation is done, we're happy to have a conversation or answer any questions live. We really appreciate all the contact information that's coming into the chat. You'll be hearing from Laura and myself here in the next day or so.
Yeah, we miss our chamber meetings.
I know.
When we have to go and see everyone, and so we hope to be able to get back to that soon.
Yeah, definitely hope to get back in person soon enough. But any event, if we don't get there quick, like I mentioned earlier, we do have our December holiday party where we're going to do a party in a box and an ugly sweater. So if anybody wants to attend, the box is just $20, and you can find that on our Kent Chamber site or via our newsletters. And again, we appreciate Vine Maple Place for speaking towards this information. We do know how important it is and how the need is out there for our Kent community. And so we look forward for you guys to be even closer with some sort of location or whatnot that you guys bring. Yeah, we definitely
we're so excited for that. We really know that there's a need in all of our communities, and we're excited that Kent is our spot, from our perspective to go to next. So
All right, well, it looks like we'll go ahead and close it out. Again, as I mentioned before, we do have this recording available for you guys on our monthly newsletters or weekly newsletters. If you guys have any questions, you can reach out via the chamber. Our phone number is 253-854-1770, and my email address is aharley@kentchamber.com, or you can reach out to Vine Maple Place, and they've provided that information in the chat. Thank you again for being with us today, and again, thank you, Vine Maple Place, for presenting. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.